Zero, wake up!
We hit solid ground below the sand.
Maybe this leads to the Rebellion Army facility.
In any case, we're safe for now.
And if we're lucky, they'll assume the quicksand killed us. Hey, I didn't know you cared about your friends so much.
I already have a debt to Spider. I didn't want to owe any more.
Okay, let's do it. For Spider. Let's go!
Well, as it turned out, we would have been more screwed if Furum hadn't come out of nowhere, because we couldn't get into the base, because the door was locked. However, we just kind of fell down in here. Also, here's all the sand. It wasn't directly below the actual pit of sand, but, Right, so we're underground now, which means we have a new gimmick, because there's no sandstorm here anymore. Oh, and more of this guy. Guy on the left ain't too bad. You know, he's just our usual fire guy, but yeah, as always, this guy just likes to start with jamming. Also, dear Cinnamon, how do you type with actual drills for hands? So, we're gonna have a lot of enemy repeats, although there is a unfamiliar face a little later on that I'll need to make note of. But while we're underground, we don't really have any, like, difficult or complex gimmicks to go through. We are approaching a switch, which we'll get to after this fight's done. But if you think there's any kind of complicated puzzle, not on this floor. This one's just a matter of, you go down passages in order to press things. And it's not always 100% necessary. A lot of this is just go down, not the main path, hit a switch, and then once all the switches have been pressed, you collect the items they were guarding. It's a lot of just that. So, honestly, nothing to really talk about too much. I mean, I guess this area looks okay. You know, after the sandstorm area. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of tomb-like for some reason. Look, it's in a sandy area, so it's gonna be tomb-themed. That's just how it goes. But, yeah, since there's not too much to talk about, in regards to this particular area, I want to mention, an interview that I think I've mentioned before. I think I've, mentioned it in passing, but I haven't gotten in-depth to it. So, there was actually a, Mega Man X Command Mission, Writer's Bible, which, yeah, obviously there have been the complete works, but I did not know that Command Mission got its own specific book. I thought it was just, you know, bundled with the other Mega Man X stuff in complete works, but yeah, no, there is a specific thing. Apparently it can't be uploaded in its entirety or Capcom gets mad, from what I can tell, but, somebody did put up a developer interview that was in that book, and I find that pretty interesting, so yeah, this is up on Rockman-Corner. It is the 2004 developer interview. And I would like to say you should just go read it right now, but if you're not familiar with the story, don't do that yet. It does touch upon some spoilers later on in the interview, though. I'm mentioning it now, so you can probably tell it's not all that. There is some stuff that I can mention before it actually happens. But yeah, overall, I think it's a pretty interesting interview. The devs are mostly pretty creative. Get to that in a sec, but I do really like that it opens right up by discussing how they really tried to capture the action game feel. They specifically mention, you know, not wanting to mess up the tempo of the other X games when translating it into an RPG, which is like, yeah, no, that is a really solid kind of thought process for that, because, well, I mean, I don't think this is a complex issue, but genres are much different. They have different needs, you do different things in them, so just taking a game into a different genre might not necessarily work. but it seemed like they were really mindful of getting that down. So, that is in part what inspired the, apparently it's called cross orders or X orders. So, I've not called them that, and I probably won't start. I just call it turn order. But yeah, just the idea of knowing when everybody is going to move does really kind of speed things up, because you know when your enemy is going to move, you know when you're going to move, so on and so forth. And like, yeah, no, that makes sense. That is probably one of the big reasons why this does feel like a relatively fast-paced RPG. Apparently, also, one of the devs, Tagawa, was inspired by Whack-A-Mole, which I don't 100% understand, but okay. You know what? Sure. Creativity and inspiration can really be anything ever. Honestly, there's no true method to madness, so yeah, you know what? If you saw Whack-A-Mole and were like, I'm gonna basically make the thing Final Fantasy X does. I'm gonna just do turn orders that are visible to the player, sure. Go right ahead, it was a good idea. I don't understand the line between point A and B, but whatever, that's on Tagawa. They also delve into the hyper mode, which, boy, they also had a bad initial idea that was eventually changed. Though I kind of get where it's coming from. Hyper mode was initially supposed to be an X and Zero thing, because, you know, it's really supposed to be more of a reference to, like, the armors. I mean, literally, Zero has Black Suit Zero as his hyper mode alt, so I kinda get where they're coming from, though. Axel also had an alternate form in X8. I never see it ever. I never see anybody use White Axel. I've really not seen him in action. But he does exist, you can't deny that. But yeah, that was the initial thought was just it's an X and Zero thing. They do mention it gets a little bit unbalanced, because, you know, everybody has a hyper mode. But it's fine. And yeah, no, I think that's a better decision overall. And quite frankly, this is a single-player game, so my personal opinion is I think that's fine. I think it should be a little unbalanced. Like, I've seen people try to rank characters, and I get that to a certain extent. You know, if somebody asks, like, hey, I'm new to this game, who should I play as? You know, you probably have your own ideas. You're inevitably going to favor somebody over somebody else. But yeah, I've seen so many people be like, this character's garbage. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? This isn't a fighting game, there's no meta. You use whoever works. Like, I've seen people write off Axel, and it's like, what the fuck, why? Why would you do that? DNA change is so good. People have written off Massimo, which is a really bad idea, and we haven't even seen why yet. But I genuinely don't understand why you would try to rank characters. Again, like, if you have a personal preference, that's fine, but I don't think there's any character in this game that's truly garbage. Again, as I've said before, when we get to the super bosses, there's definitely gonna be a bit more of a narrow range of who's usable where, but, like, I don't think it's as harsh as one might expect. And again, you don't need fighting game tier lists. It's so unnecessary. Just stick with who you like and you'll be fine. But anyway, yeah, they did also mention the thing I like about Marino, which is when you use her eventually, she just takes over X orders. I don't think Marino's, like, super picked. Just because, you know, she can be a little weak. but you can't deny the power of just dominating the entire turn order. They also mentioned that that they compare the hyper mode to bombs in shmups, which also pretty cool. I do really like the their comparisons. I think this is a team that has you know, a good amount of knowledge about genre and other games and kind of how to play with concepts. And what do you know, I scrolled down to the point where I think they're less creative. Interview also mentions that this game has relatively the most female characters in the whole series, which is a correct statement, but may I point out, in terms of playable female characters, there are 2. Which, actually, I know it's not the main game, but technically speaking, X8 does actually beat that out. Like, you can play as all 3 of the navigators. So, yeah, that game actually has 3 playable female characters. But yeah, the reason I say that, they're perhaps a little uncreative is, mentioned that the series had a strong dudes-only vibe, but then they also mentioned how weird it would be if there was a male healer, and it's like, man, you guys are so knowledgeable about genre, it's fucking buck wild that, like, gender roles throw you off. Like, that's the extent of it. Like, oh yeah, no, we can incorporate kind of the speed of an action game into an RPG, you know, we're kind of considering that. We kind of have the equivalent of a bomb and a shmup. Anyway, wouldn't it be weird if a guy was a healer? So, I guess that's why Cinnamon exists. That's the reason why we have 2 playable female characters. Who, might I also mention, we have not seen in main cutscenes since their appearance. Like, Marino and Cinnamon debuted, and like, we can talk to them between chapters, like they've been there for the intermissions, but like, in terms of main story stuff, it's mostly been X-Zero and Axel, now that the Maverick Hunters are back together. And failing that, we've got Massimo sometimes. Even he gets a little more screen time than the rest. And of course, Spider got his big moment where he got his arm broken, and then like 10 minutes later he died. So yeah, as much as I will praise the gameplay, look, you can call me a Marno simp as much as you want, but to be fair, where is she though? Like, this game could have a lot more in terms of its story. I think I would definitely like the game to be a bit more fleshed out, but they could use more than everybody else even. Anyway though, gotta stop talking about that stuff right now, because we just fought a special enemy, the Gold Blader. It's incredibly frail. However, it has something special. The Good Luck Force Medal, which increases drop rates. Also cutscene.
Aha! X, what are you doing here? Why, that Ferrum, she goes off and acts on her own, and then she doesn't even finish the job.
They were just lucky. Ferrum is not to blame. This just means that you will have the opportunity to take care of them yourself, Botos. We're counting on you.
You think you're Epsilon's favorite? I'll show you soon enough.
Anyway though, yeah, that's our random cutscene in the middle of the chapter. We are to a more complicated section, but back to the Gold Blader. So yes, the Good Luck Force Medal increases the drop rate by 3%, which is pretty cool. It is very helpful. Problem: this guy also drops the item capture sub-weapon, which I need, because as I mentioned before, I did kind of eat all of mine. So, I'm not going to do this now, but I do this after the chapter. I wanted more of the item capture sub-weapon, so I came back here to fight the Gold Blader. However, I kept getting the good luck force medal again, and again, and again, and again. And you know the funny thing about that? I must have gotten like, maybe 9 of them? I forget how many I have overall. I had 1 before, and now I can like fill out people's force medal chart. And yeah, it's kinda ludicrous. However, the good luck drop rate is 2%, while item capture is 10%. I got the more difficult item to get repeatedly. And like, theoretically, it should have been even easier for me to get item capture because I was picking up more and more good luck force medals, but it kept not happening. And it was maddening, because I really don't need that many. There are rare drops you're kinda gonna want to pull for later on in the game, but like, it's not something I'm concerning myself with, so I don't care. But I kept getting the thing that should have been harder to get. I spent like 20 minutes fucking grinding for the item capture. It was kind of a pain. Anyway though, so, right. Let's see, what else? I didn't want to mention too much. They go into the force medals for a bit. That's a little bit spoiler-y, so I'm not gonna mention that one just yet. Nothing too new on the subject of healing. I've mentioned before, I think the sub-tank system is neat. They don't really say anything too new. Like, it's resource management. They wanted something that was a little more creative than just, you get health items, and if you deplete your sub-tanks, then you kinda just have to go back, because then you're at a huge risk against boss fights. They do also touch upon the fact that you do heal when you level up, so it's not quite as threatening as it might be. Next one I want to mention, though, amongst other things, there is talk of the action trigger stuff, which is, not too bad. They also, mention action triggers are based on kind of the personality or the vibes of the character. That's cool. They specifically mention the final strikes are inspired by Sentai, because you have 7 companions, so like, you just combine your attacks into a finishing move. Which, I sort of get that. It's a little messier than your typical final strike. Look, I still don't want this game to look different, but if they were to ever do, like, a new Mega Man X Command mission, I would be curious if they'd go the Super Mario RPG route, where, like, each set of characters has, like, their own iteration of the super move. The problem is this game does have more characters than Mario RPG, so that might be a little difficult to get, but, I'd be interested if there's, like, a boss fight version or something. I don't know, like, they're really not trying to make it cinematic is the thing. It is supposed to be a little more animated in Mario RPG, but here it's, you have to press buttons a bunch of times to get it to finish, so having like a big animation would probably get in the way of that. Like, the number of hits you do does actually have a gameplay purpose. As I mentioned before, if you've gotten Final Strike, it's highly unlikely that it'll fail to kill the enemy, unless you out and out don't target them, when, there's more than one. Yeah, there's also Force Medal you can unlock by getting a certain number of hits on a Final Strike. But yeah, oh, and they do also mention, like, wouldn't it be wild if there was a Final Strike that you could only use if everybody else went down, which I guess that would be kind of cool. Kind of a solo finisher. Really reminiscent of Final Fantasy VI. You know how that game invented limit breaks and nobody really knows about it because you never see them. Like, if you didn't know, that game does have limit breaks. But, like, they are so specific. You have to really be on death's door in a way you probably won't be in Final Fantasy VI, because it's not the most difficult game. Anyway, we do have a fancy reflect the lasers puzzle. It's basically just, you have to set up the lasers downstairs in a certain way, and once you destroy the circuit box, then stuff up here will be unlocked. We will need to be careful when flipping lasers because in some rooms, if you see the Rebellion logo and you hit that with a laser, then you get into a fight. So pay attention to where the mirrors you flip actually point to, and you should be fine. There are also various bits that you have to shine on in order to unlock items as well, so thank goodness for walkthroughs telling me how to actually do this. That way I can just do it and not really think about it. Anyway, yeah, that's how we leave this base, and yeah, now we can actively get in and out of it, so no big deal anymore. Anyway, though, let's see, they also mention, they touch upon kind of the area themes. One thing they didn't quite get to establish as well is how the stages themselves reflect the bosses, but, like, they came up with the bosses first, and also, this is kind of a case of, like, each area is, kind of just being occupied by the boss, rather, well, I mean, that's actually kind of how it is in most Mega Man X games, too. Sometimes they have time to set up shop, but oftentimes the bosses are just kind of hanging around a place that happened to reflect them, so I guess they could have also done that here, but I guess they just didn't really get as much opportunity. Though I will say, out of all of them, I feel like Silverhorn probably had the best map location to boss personality. Like, it was an underwater base, you didn't really get the underwater aspect of it as much, but you were going deeper underground, and there were undersea portions that you could see, but it was also a prison, and I think that fit him pretty well. Definitely did a good job kind of adhering to the prison Warren character he was. Let's see, next off, they do touch upon the fact that, like, they were asked why humans didn't appear in the games, and they did, you know, pick up on the main series games where humans don't. Like, that it is a conscious decision that humans don't really appear in the X games, and while I still think X4 would have benefit from, you know, just the human reaction, at the same time, it is a deliberate decision to never include the humans, which I think overall is better. I think the X series specifically, its biggest focus should really be just Reploids having to fight Reploids. Like, they're doing this at the behest of humans, but it's all about them. That sort of thing. Like, yeah, that's kind of a huge point of the series. So, I'm glad this team did make note of that, and they kept to that. But they did also mention how, just basically everybody just evacuated when the rebellion started, and you can only see the remnants of them. They just had to get the fuck out of there and just leave their houseplants behind. Let's see, anything else? Oh, you know, where was that? Let me just scroll around. Okay, yeah, so they did mention X as a character in this game, and they specifically mention how X is a character who's been full of doubts, and had we kept him like that, he would have been perceived as a weak character due to him having too many strong companions, which I wish they didn't have to go with that, but they're probably correct. I feel like a lot of people will look at the type of character X is and be like, that guy's a wimp. And it's like, I understand why you did it, but still, though, they mentioned that they had to have him be a very expressive character. You know, he has to, and so they had him not falter and just kind of go with it, and I don't know how successful they were. I completely understand why they did what they did, and again, sometimes people are just sort of, dumb about characters who are, perhaps a bit more, ruminating. I'm certain the word whiny has been used about X before, but I don't know, I don't feel like they did that much with him in this game. I feel like he's a little flat just because he's just going around going like, okay, let's do the thing. And then you get to a boss and he points his buster at them and doesn't fire. But he sure does say something at him. He'll just go up to the boss and be like, hey, stop being evil. It's bad to be evil. But honestly, if anything, I don't know, like with the inclusion of Ale, they still sort of have X a little bit true to his character. Like, look, as jokey as I will be about... Oh, so yeah, you have to backtrack for this, it's dumb. And it's fine, I guess. But yeah, as much as I joke about Ale, like, even if that is a very sudden scene, I don't think it's unreasonable for X to quickly attach to somebody and, see kind of the, for lack of a better word, humanity of them. And even if they're taken relatively quickly, he will probably, have a few words about that. He'll be at least a little sad about it, but... that scene happens so quickly, Ale just appears and then dies 10 seconds later. And X is like, no, this is the most influential man I've ever met. But yeah, like, other than that, X is a little too straightforward. So, again, I get why they made the decision, but I don't think they really made it up for that much. And I don't know, even if I do understand the decision, I think overall, I probably would have liked a more contemplative character in this game. Like somebody who's actually thinking about the events and kind of, perhaps viewing it from an angle of, I am very sad this is happening, but I don't know, like, one of my favorite aspects of Metroid Fusion is just the brief scenes you get where Samus is on an elevator, and you just get her thoughts for a bit, She is a very ponderous character, and I actually find that really interesting. I just kind of like that, she's very serious and no-nonsense, when you're actually in the job, when she actually has to do things, but... in those brief moments of silence, she just sort of thinks back, and she's fairly straightforward in that role, but I think she's interesting in it as well, and I don't know, I feel like making X a bit more contemplative would have kind of been the edge you needed. Like, I think they could have done that without, making him seem too weak in comparison to everybody else, or like he's too whiny. I think they could have threaded that needle. Anyway, though, that's all the computers activated, so we're done here. Are you able to trans?
Oh, not so fast. You're not getting any HRT while I'm still around.
Alright, well, that must be the boss for the area. Let's go fight him! Okay, well then, this has been a relatively short area. Slightly more complex in terms of, like, a stage puzzle, but, like, that's it. And if I were to go to the third floor, there's not even a third floor. I would just immediately be at the boss. So, yeah, we're gonna stop here, and next time, we're gonna beat this chapter. I don't think I touched upon every single thing I might have wanted to in this interview, but I'll be able to talk about it later, especially since, again, lots of spoilers. It'll be back. Trust me, it will definitely be back.